In the small sun-scorched village of Makand, where dust whispered secrets through narrow alleys and hope seemed like a fading myth, 16-year-old Amina lived her life quietly, almost invisibly. She was the orphan daughter of the late Mzee Baraka, a respected fisherman, whose death left her with nothing but an old hut and a few fading memories. When hunger gnawed too loud and loneliness became too heavy, her late father's distant cousin, Mama Khadija, took her in, not out of love, but obligation. Mama Khadija's own daughter, Halima, was the village's flower, proud, spoiled, and used to getting her way. Their home, though made of cracked mud walls and rusted iron sheets, had a strange hierarchy: Halima, the queen; Amina, the invisible servant. Life was cruel, but Amina had learned not to expect kindness. Until one morning, as the rooster crowed and the scent of boiling cassava filled the cramped house, Mama Khadija called her into the dimly lit sitting room. Her voice was unusually sweet, a tone Amina had never heard directed at her. "My daughter," she said, patting the worn mat beside her, "you have grown. You are no longer a little girl. It's time you take up your responsibilities." Amina's heart skipped. Had they found her a weaving apprenticeship? Or perhaps she could finally earn her own keep. Her mind raced with innocent dreams. But her illusions shattered with Mama Khadija's next words. "You will marry Omar, for the good of this family." Amina froze. Omar was Halima's betrothed, or at least he had been. A handsome young man, once full of laughter, now sat behind darkness after an accident during a fishing expedition had stolen his sight. In Makand, a blind man was seen as half a man, a burden. And Halima, proud as ever, had refused to marry a broken man. But the shame of breaking a marriage promise weighed heavy on Mama Khadija. The whispers in the market, the glances at the well, they stung her pride more than poverty itself. Amina, voiceless and powerless, was the sacrificial lamb. Tears pricked her eyes, but she nodded numbly. Refusal was not an option. In Makand, orphans had no voice. Their lives were bargaining chips. The wedding was held the next day, with barely a dozen guests and no music. Amina wore a faded blue kitenge that Halima had tossed aside months ago. Omar, solemn and lost in his own dark world, sat beside her without a word. When the village elder pronounced them husband and wife, Amina felt a part of herself die quietly, without ceremony. Their home was a small extension of Mama Khadija's house, a single room with a creaky bed, a tiny stove, and silence so heavy it pressed on her chest. Every night, she sat beside Omar, watching his unseeing eyes stare into the void, wondering if he even knew who she was or cared. But one night, as the crickets sang and the village slept, something happened that would shift the course of Amina's cursed fate forever. That night, as the cold crept through the cracks in the walls, Amina sat awake, listening to Omar's steady breathing. She wrapped the thin blanket tighter around her shoulders, her mind restless. Life had become a series of quiet days and quieter nights. Omar barely spoke, only nodding or murmuring in response when she tried to engage him. But tonight was different. "Amina," Omar's voice broke the silence, low and uncertain. She stiffened. In all these weeks, he had never called her by name. "Yes, Omar," she whispered. He turned his head toward her, as if searching in the darkness he already lived in. "I know you're not here by choice." The words hung between them, fragile and raw. Tears welled up in Amina's eyes. She hadn't known he understood. She thought he was trapped in his own sorrow, oblivious to her pain. I am sorry," he continued. "I should not have allowed this. I should have said no." Her throat tightened. For the first time since her forced marriage, someone acknowledged the wrong done to her. Not pity, understanding. In that moment, the bitterness in her heart softened slightly. Maybe Omar, too, was a prisoner in this arrangement. Days turned into weeks. A strange companionship grew between them. Omar began telling stories about his boyhood fishing with his father, the dreams he once had of traveling beyond Mekong. In turn, Amina spoke of her parents, her secret wish of becoming a teacher someday, a dream that had withered with her orphanhood. One afternoon, as she swept the tiny yard, she overheard Mama Khadija and Halima arguing inside the house. "She's winning his heart," Halima hissed. "You promised he would remain nothing. That he would stay useless. And now he listens to her, laughs with her." Mama Khadija's voice, sharp and poisonous, replied, "If she finds a way to free him, we lose control. We lose his late father's land and inheritance. Remember, that land was promised through his marriage to you. If they annul this marriage, it all goes to the village elders." Amina's blood ran cold. So that was it. This had never been about honor. It had been about property, about greed. She was merely a pawn to keep their grasp tight around Omar's ancestral land. That night, as the moon cast silver shadows across the dusty compound, Amina told Omar everything she had heard. Rage and despair twisted across his face. "I will not let them chain us like this," he said through clenched teeth. "But how?" Amina asked, feeling both hope and fear clawing at her chest. Omar's sight was gone, but his mind was sharp. He had overheard many conversations over the months, whispered schemes Mama Khadija thought he could not catch. He had pieced together their manipulations, their lies. "We will leave Mekong," he said. "Together." Amina's heart pounded. Leaving meant freedom, but it also meant danger, risk, and an uncertain future. Still, anything was better than this invisible cage. As the village slept, Omar and Amina began to secretly plan their escape, unaware that someone had been listening and that betrayal lurked closer than they thought. The plan was simple: wait until the next market day, when Mama Khadija and Halima would be busy selling cassava at the bustling town center. With the village distracted, Amina and Omar could slip away unnoticed, taking the old footpath that led to the distant city of Mtwara, a place neither had ever seen but where they believed they could start anew. For days, Amina quietly packed what little they had, a few coins Omar had hidden away, some dried beans, a battered cooking pot. Every night, they whispered their hopes and fears beneath the thin blanket, their bond deepening beyond the chains of forced marriage. But betrayal has sharp ears. On the morning of their planned escape, as the sun rose red and heavy over the horizon, Halima stood at their door, a wicked smile curling her lips. "Going somewhere," she drawled, blocking the threshold with arms folded. Behind her, Mama Khadija loomed, flanked by two village elders. Panic surged through Amina, but Omar squeezed her hand gently, steadying her. "They are running away," Halima announced triumphantly, pointing an accusing finger at them. "They want to abandon their responsibilities and disgrace the family." The elders looked troubled. In Mekong, marriage was sacred. To leave it was to invite shame, not just on oneself, but on one's entire lineage. Mama Khadija's voice rose in feigned outrage, painting Omar and Amina as ungrateful, treacherous. But as they spun their lies, Omar did something unexpected. He stepped forward, lifting his chin high. "I may have lost my sight," he said, his voice strong, "but I have not lost my right to choose my own fate. Amina was forced into this marriage. We both were manipulated, used like cattle for land and wealth." Murmurs rippled through the crowd that had gathered. "And if you wish to judge us," Omar continued, "then judge the ones who treat human beings as property. Not the ones who dare to seek freedom." His words, full of quiet dignity, struck a nerve in the villagers. The elders exchanged glances, their stern faces softening slightly. They had seen too many forced marriages, too much suffering cloaked in tradition. After a long, tense silence, one elder finally spoke. "Let them go," he said, his voice gravelly with age. Freedom is not a sin. It is a right. Mama Khadija protested, but the crowd was no longer with her. One by one, the villagers turned their backs on her, their judgment silent but final. With trembling hands, Amina and Omar gathered their few belongings. As they stepped onto the dusty path leading away from Makand, they didn't look back. The journey was long and harsh. Nights spent under open skies, days navigating through unfamiliar fields and forests. But with every step, the weight on Amina's chest lessened. Eventually, they reached Mtwara, a city buzzing with life, opportunity, and anonymity. They found refuge in a small community center where Amina could continue her education, and Omar, resilient and determined, began learning massage therapy, a trade respected for the blind. Their marriage, once forged in cruelty, slowly bloomed into a partnership rooted in respect, resilience, and love, not the kind that strikes like lightning, but the kind that grows steadily with care. Their story became a quiet testament whispered among those who dare to dream beyond their given chains. Freedom sometimes demands great pain, but the price of living without it is far greater.